Jake Morrison walked through the crystal corridors of Harmony Prime for what he knew would be the last time. The massive orbital station had served as the galaxy's diplomatic heart for over 2,000 years. Representatives from 47 different species conducted their business in these gleaming halls, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that had once filled Jake with wonder. Today, the sounds made him feel sick. The human ambassador adjusted his formal diplomatic robes, the deep blue fabric marking him as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council. He had worn these robes with pride for 8 years, believing that humanity was slowly earning its place among the stars. That belief had died 3 hours ago in the Council's main chamber, crushed under the weight of unanimous alien indifference. Behind Jake, 12 other humans followed in perfect formation. Lisa Grant walked directly behind him, her face carved from stone despite the tears she had shed in private. Roy Blake kept his hand near his ceremonial weapon, old military instincts making him scan every corridor for threats. Patricia Stone moved with the controlled grace of someone who had been planning for this moment much longer than anyone realized. The group entered the Council's communication center, where dozens of alien technicians operated the most advanced broadcasting equipment in known space. The massive holographic displays showed star maps spanning entire galactic arms, trade route analyses that affected trillions of beings, and diplomatic status reports that could prevent or start wars with a single data point update. Jake approached the central communication array, ignoring the confused chatter from the alien operators. The Zephyrian technician on duty, her scaled hands dancing across holographic controls, looked up at the approaching humans with large golden eyes. "Ambassador Morrison, the communication array is not scheduled for human use today," she said in the precise common tongue that all species used for official business. "I am not requesting use," Jake replied, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. "I am claiming it under Emergency Protocol 7. The chamber fell silent. Emergency Protocol 7 had only been used 3 times in galactic history, each time to announce disasters that threatened entire civilizations. The Zephyrian technician's eyes widened as she realized she had no choice but to comply with the ancient law. Jake stepped onto the broadcasting platform as technicians across the chamber activated recording systems. In moments, his words would reach every council member, every allied government, and every major population center across 47 worlds. The weight of what he was about to do pressed down on his shoulders like a physical force. "Citizens and representatives of the Galactic Council," Jake began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Federation and all human colonies throughout Council space." The formal opening drew attention from across the station. In council chambers, alien representatives paused their debates. In trade centers, merchants stopped their negotiations. In military command rooms, generals leaned forward to listen. For 31 years, humanity has honored every treaty, followed every regulation, and accepted every limitation placed upon us by this council. We have relocated our colonies when ordered. We have limited our expansion to systems deemed appropriate by council surveys. We have shared our technological developments freely, while accepting restrictions on our own research. We have played by rules written before humans ever reached the stars. Jake paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. Behind him, the other human representatives stood like statues, their faces revealing nothing of the storm about to break. 3 hours ago, this council voted unanimously to relocate human colonies from the Kepler system to accommodate Zephyrian expansion. The vote was 46-0. With humanity not permitted to vote on our own future. This decision affects 2 million human civilians who have built their lives in that system over 2 generations. The Zephyrian technician's scales had shifted to a pale color that indicated distress among her species. Around the chamber, alien operators exchanged nervous glances. They could sense something unprecedented happening, but the full implications had not yet struck them. The justification given was that humanity, as a developing species, must accept council guidance for the greater good of galactic civilization. The Kepler system's mineral wealth is apparently too important to leave in human hands. Our colonies, our families, our entire future in that region must be sacrificed because the council has decided that Zephyrian needs outweigh human rights. Jake's voice hardened, taking on the tone he had once used as a military officer before becoming a diplomat. The United Earth Federation has considered this decision carefully. We have reviewed our treaties, analyzed our obligations, and examined our alternatives. The silence in the chamber was absolute now. Even the station's background hum seemed muted as every being present focused on the human ambassador's words. Effective immediately, the United Earth Federation formally withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties, trade agreements, military cooperation pacts, and diplomatic protocols. We renounce Council authority over human colonies, human space lanes, and human territorial claims. We withdraw recognition of Council law as it applies to human citizens and human interests. The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several alien technicians stumbled backward from their control stations. The Zephyrian operator let out a high-pitched whistle of distress that was immediately echoed by others of her species throughout the chamber. As of this moment, humanity considers itself a sovereign power answerable to no galactic authority. We will defend our colonies, our trade routes, and our citizens using whatever means we deem appropriate. The age of human compliance with alien oversight has ended. Jake stepped down from the platform, his message complete. Around the chamber, emergency alerts began flashing as alien governments received the broadcast and realized its implications. The carefully maintained peace of the galaxy had just been shattered by 13 humans walking away from everything their species had worked to build. Lisa Grant followed Jake toward the exit, her diplomatic credentials already deactivated by her own command codes. Roy Blake cast one last look at the panicking alien technicians before turning to follow his colleagues. Patricia Stone smiled grimly as she walked past the communication array. Knowing that certain encrypted messages were already racing ahead of them, through channels the aliens knew nothing about. The human delegation moved through Harmony Prime's corridors like a military unit, their years of diplomatic training replaced by older, deadlier skills. Behind them, they left their ceremonial council pins scattered across the chamber floor like discarded promises. As they reached their transport, Jake heard the first emergency broadcasts beginning. Council representatives were demanding explanations. Military commanders were requesting immediate status updates. Trade officials were calculating the economic implications of losing human participation in galactic commerce. None of them understood what humanity had actually been preparing for during 31 years of apparent cooperation. They were about to learn that underestimating humans was the most dangerous mistake any species could make. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of Harmony Prime, and the galaxy was learning what silence meant. Council Prime Zerion stood before the massive viewing screen in his private chambers, watching trade reports that painted an increasingly grim picture. The flowing scripts of Altarian mathematics scrolled across the display, but every calculation told the same story. The galactic economy was bleeding efficiency. Lisa Grant had once managed the Vega Trade Corridor, a complex network of shipping routes that connected 17 different species across 4 galactic sectors. Her human team had somehow made the impossible logistics work smoothly, coordinating delivery schedules that alien mathematicians claimed were theoretically unsound. Now those same routes were experiencing delays that cascaded across entire star systems. The Caridian merchant vessels that relied on human-designed scheduling algorithms found themselves arriving at empty stations. The Altarian philosophical texts that humans had helped translate were piling up in warehouses because no one else understood the complex cultural nuances required for proper distribution. Even simple tasks like coordinating time zones across different planetary rotations had become sources of confusion and conflict. Council Prime Zerion touched a control surface with one of his 6 delicate appendages, calling up a priority report from the Intelligence Division. The document made him uncomfortable in ways that his species rarely experienced. Human colonies were not just refusing Council authority. They were expanding with a speed and efficiency that defied every model the Council had developed for understanding human behavior. Captain Roy Blake commanded the Earth Defense Force vessel Harbinger, now patrolling what humans had unilaterally declared as their sovereign border. The ship itself looked wrong to alien sensors, its hull configuration following no known design principles. When Zephyrian scouts attempted to approach for routine identification procedures, Blake's response had been swift and final. The destroyed Zephyrian research vessel had been found drifting in space with all hands lost, its hull bearing scorch marks from weapons that alien scientists could not identify. The ship's final transmission had been a confused report about human vessels that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. The Zephyrian Empire demanded an explanation, but human communication channels remained completely silent. Blake stood on the Harbinger's bridge, watching his tactical displays track another approaching vessel. The alien ship was broadcasting standard peaceful research credentials, but the new human protocols were clear. Any non-human vessel approaching human space received one warning transmission. If they did not immediately retreat, they were classified as a hostile threat and dealt with accordingly. Unknown vessel, you are approaching the sovereign territory of the United Earth Federation, Blake transmitted on standard frequencies. Reverse course immediately or face defensive action. The Altarian research ship continued its approach, its captain apparently believing that scientific credentials provided safe passage as they had for centuries. The alien commander probably assumed this was some kind of misunderstanding that could be resolved through proper diplomatic channels. Blake watched the countdown timer on his tactical display. 30 seconds to weapons range, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. The Altarian vessel showed no signs of changing course. Fire, Blake ordered. The Harbinger's weapon systems engaged with technology that the Galactic Council had never seen before. The Altarian research vessel simply vanished, not destroyed in any conventional sense, but somehow removed from normal spacetime entirely. There was no debris field, no energy signature, no evidence that a ship had ever existed in that location. News of the second incident spread through Council space faster than the first. 2 alien vessels had approached human territory under legitimate circumstances, and both had been eliminated without negotiation or warning beyond the initial transmission. The humans were not just being difficult, they had become genuinely dangerous. Patricia Stone reviewed the intelligence reports from her office in the rebuilt Strategic Command Center on Earth. The Council's response to human withdrawal was following patterns that human psychologists had predicted with remarkable accuracy. First came the diplomatic protests, demanding that humanity return to the negotiating table. Then came the economic pressure attempts, as alien governments tried to isolate human trade. What the aliens did not understand was that humans had been preparing for exactly this scenario for years. Every critical technology that human colonies depended on had been quietly replaced with systems that required no alien components or expertise. Every essential resource had been secured through independent human mining operations in systems that Council surveys had somehow overlooked or declared unviable. Stone activated her communication system and connected to military commanders across human space. The reports were consistent. Alien intelligence gathering attempts were increasing, but they were also becoming more confused. Human technological capabilities were apparently far beyond what any alien government had realized. Captain Frank Coleman commanded the defense grid around the New Terra colony, one of the human settlements that the Council had originally ordered relocated. Instead of abandoning their homes, the colonists had simply declared independence along with the rest of humanity. Coleman's ships patrolled the system using propulsion methods that alien physicists claimed were impossible. The New Terra system contained mineral deposits that made it strategically valuable, which was why the Zephyrian Empire had demanded its transfer. What the aliens did not know was that human mining operations had been extracting those minerals for years, while publicly reporting much lower yields. The actual wealth of human colonies was far greater than Council records indicated. Coleman received reports of alien probe ships attempting to gather intelligence on human defensive capabilities. The probes were sophisticated devices designed to observe from extreme range without being detected. Unfortunately for their operators, human sensor technology had advanced far beyond alien expectations. Each probe that entered the New Terra system was tracked, analyzed, and then quietly destroyed using methods that left no trace for alien investigators to study. The probe operators would eventually realize their devices had malfunctioned, but they would never learn how or why. Council Prime Xerion called an emergency session as reports continued pouring in from across the galaxy. Human settlements were not just defending themselves, they were expanding into new systems at a rate that suggested capabilities far beyond what the Council had ever imagined. Mining operations appeared overnight on asteroids that surveys had marked as economically unviable. Colonies established themselves in star systems that alien scientists claimed were too dangerous for permanent habitation. The most disturbing reports came from intelligence operatives who had attempted to infiltrate human space. None of them had returned. Their ships were found drifting empty, their crews simply gone without any sign of struggle or violence. It was as if the humans possessed technology that could make people disappear without leaving evidence. As Zarion reviewed the accumulated data, a terrible realization began to form in his complex alien mind. For 31 years, the Council had believed that humanity was slowly learning to participate in galactic civilization under proper alien guidance. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity had been studying the galaxy while pretending to be students, and they had learned far more than their teachers ever suspected. General Patricia Stone stood in the command center beneath the Rockies, watching display screens that showed the movement of alien fleets across 3 galactic sectors. Intelligence reports had been arriving for weeks indicating that the Council was preparing what they called a peacekeeping intervention. 12 different species had committed warships to a joint operation designed to force humanity back to the negotiating table through a show of overwhelming force. The alien plan was simple and predictable. A massive fleet would converge on the Kepler system, the human colonies that had sparked this entire crisis, and establish a blockade. Cut off from supplies and facing superior numbers, human leadership would have no choice but to restore diplomatic relations and accept Council authority once again. Stone smiled as she reviewed the fleet, composition data that human intelligence had acquired through methods the aliens could never have imagined. The Council was sending their most advanced warships, vessels that represented centuries of collaborative military engineering between dozens of species. The combined firepower would be sufficient to destroy entire planets if necessary. What the aliens did not understand was that humanity had been hoping they would try exactly this approach. Captain Roy Blake received his orders, while the Harbinger patrolled the outer edge of human space. The message was brief and contained coordinates that placed his ship directly in the path of the approaching Council fleet. Blake had served in 3 different wars before becoming a diplomat's escort, and he recognized a combat assignment when he saw one. But this would not be a conventional battle. Blake's new orders came with technical specifications that made him question whether he was reading the documents correctly. The Harbinger was apparently equipped with systems that defied everything he thought he knew about physics and engineering. Captain Lisa Harper commanded the vanguard from a bridge that looked nothing like the military vessels of her training years. Human ship design had evolved dramatically during the decades when aliens thought they were monitoring human technological development. The clean lines and organic curves of the control surfaces felt more like artwork than military equipment. Harper reviewed her mission parameters while her crew ran final system checks on equipment that most of humanity had never seen. The Vanguard represented technology that human scientists had developed in complete secrecy, using theoretical frameworks that alien physicists had dismissed as impossible fantasy. The third vessel in Stone's demonstration would be the Defiance, commanded by Captain Frank Coleman. His ship carried the most experimental systems of all, devices that human engineers had built by combining alien scientific principles in ways that no alien species had ever attempted. The results were theoretical marvels that worked perfectly in practice while violating several fundamental laws that alien science considered absolute counsel. Prime Zarion led the joint fleet from his flagship, a massive Altarian vessel that bristled with weapon systems from a dozen different worlds. The sight of 12 species working together in perfect military coordination should have filled him with pride. Instead, he felt a growing unease that his rational mind could not explain. The intelligence reports about human capabilities had become increasingly disturbing. Human vessels apparently possessed propulsion systems that allowed faster-than-light travel without using the hyperspace lanes that all known technology required. Human weapons seemed to operate on principles that alien science claimed were theoretically impossible. Most troubling of all, human ships had been observed phasing in and out of normal space-time as if the fundamental structure of reality was optional. Zarion tried to dismiss these reports as exaggerations born of fear and confusion. Surely no species could develop such advanced technology in isolation, especially not humans who had only reached the stars a few decades ago. The Council's own scientists had carefully monitored human research and development, ensuring that dangerous discoveries were properly controlled and guided. The joint fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates, Their navigation computers had calculated for intercepting human vessels before they could reach the Kepler system. What they found waiting for them challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, technology, and the nature of physical reality itself. 3 human vessels hung motionless in the void, their positions forming a perfect triangle that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The ships themselves defied easy description, their hulls appearing solid one moment and translucent the next. Energy readings fluctuated wildly as alien sensors tried to analyze the human technology and failed to produce coherent data. Blake spoke from the Harbinger's bridge, his voice carrying across communication frequencies that the alien fleet used for coordination. "Council vessels, you are approaching sovereign human territory. This is your only warning to withdraw immediately." Zerion activated his fleet's communication system, addressing the human captain with all the diplomatic authority of his position. "Captain Blake, I am Council Prime Zerion, commanding a joint peacekeeping force. You will stand down and allow our diplomatic representatives to board your vessel for immediate negotiations," Harper answered from the Vanguard, her ship suddenly appearing directly beside Zerion's flagship, despite having been visible several thousand kilometers away moments before. "Negative, Council Prime. Humanity no longer recognizes Council authority or Council law. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures." The alien fleet commanders exchanged frantic communications as their sensors registered impossible readings from the human vessels. The ships were apparently generating localized gravitational fields that bent space-time around them, creating effects that alien physics claimed required the mass of entire star systems to achieve. Coleman activated the Defiance's demonstration systems, causing his vessel to simply vanish from normal space before reappearing simultaneously in 12 different locations around the alien fleet. Each copy appeared completely solid and real to alien sensors, making it impossible to determine which image represented the actual ship. "This is Captain Frank Coleman." His voice came from every direction at once. "You are witnessing a small sample of human defensive capabilities. Our technology operates on principles that your science has not yet discovered. Withdraw now, or face the consequences of attempting military action against a superior force." Zerion stared at his tactical displays as they showed readings that violated fundamental laws of physics. The human vessels were manipulating gravity, space, and time itself, as if these forces were simple engineering problems. Weapons that should have been impossible were targeting his fleet with precision that suggested the humans could destroy every alien ship simultaneously if they chose to do so. The demonstration lasted exactly 60 seconds. When it ended, the 3 human vessels resumed their original positions, hanging motionless in space as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But every alien commander in the joint fleet now understood that they were facing technology so advanced that resistance would be not just futile but completely meaningless. Zerion found his voice after several moments of stunned silence. "Council fleet, begin immediate withdrawal to minimum safe distance. Do not attempt to approach human vessels under any circumstances." As the alien ships retreated in confused disorder, Stone watched from her command center and smiled. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand what humanity had accomplished during 31 years of apparent cooperation and submission. Dr. Helen Carter packed the last of her research files into secure containers, while alien security forces watched her every movement. For 15 years, she had served as humanity's chief scientific liaison to the Altarian Research Collective, working alongside the galaxy's most brilliant minds to advance interspecies knowledge. The aliens had no idea that her real job had been far more complex and dangerous than simple scientific cooperation. Carter had spent those years carefully misdirecting Council research efforts, while human scientists pursued breakthrough technologies in complete isolation. Every report she submitted contained subtle inaccuracies that led alien researchers down productive, but ultimately limited paths. Every collaboration she participated in revealed alien capabilities to human intelligence, while revealing nothing meaningful about human progress. The Altarian research director Kethvar approached her with the complex facial expressions that his species used to convey deep emotional distress. "Dr. Carter, surely this withdrawal is temporary. Your species cannot seriously intend to abandon the accumulated knowledge of 47 civilizations." Carter sealed her containers and activated the security locks that would prevent any alien technology from accessing their contents. Director Kethavar, humanity thanks the collective for the educational opportunities you have provided. However, we no longer require external guidance in our scientific endeavors. What Kethavar did not understand was that every human scientist working in council space had been following similar protocols. While alien governments believed they were monitoring human research and ensuring that dangerous discoveries were properly controlled, the humans had been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Captain Amy Davis commanded the evacuation fleet that was systematically removing human civilians and technical advisors from hundreds of worlds across council space. Her ships moved through alien territories using diplomatic credentials that were still technically valid, though she knew those permissions would be revoked as soon as the aliens understood what was happening. Each human facility that Davis's teams evacuated left behind infrastructure that had been seamlessly integrated into alien society. Power generation systems that had improved efficiency by 30% suddenly went offline. Communication networks that had handled interspecies translation with perfect accuracy began producing garbled outputs. Transportation systems that had coordinated complex logistics across multiple worlds started experiencing cascading failures. Davis received reports from her evacuation teams that painted the same picture everywhere. The aliens had become dependent on human innovation in ways they had never realized. Systems that appeared to be standard alien technology actually contained crucial human modifications that had been introduced so gradually that no one had noticed their importance. The Caridian Republic discovered this truth when their agricultural systems began failing after human advisors departed. For years, human botanists had worked alongside Caridian farmers to improve crop yields and develop resistance to local plant diseases. The Caridian government had assumed this was simple scientific collaboration, but the human modifications had become integral to their food production systems. Within days of the human withdrawal, Caridian crops began showing signs of the same diseases that had been eliminated years earlier. The carefully balanced agricultural ecosystems that supported billions of Caridian citizens were collapsing without the ongoing human adjustments that had maintained their stability. Similar crises emerged across council space as the true scope of human involvement in galactic civilization became apparent. The elegant trade networks that connected dozens of worlds had been optimized using human mathematical models that alien economists had never fully understood. The breakthrough medical technologies that had extended lifespans for multiple species contained human insights into biological processes that alien doctors had accepted without question. President Karen Mitchell stood before the United Earth Federation Assembly in the rebuilt capital of New Geneva, preparing to address not just humanity but the entire galaxy. Intelligence reports indicated that alien governments were intercepting and analyzing every human communication they could access, desperately trying to understand what humanity was planning. Mitchell's speech would be broadcast throughout human space, but nowhere beyond. The galaxy's other species would have to rely on fragments and rumors, just as humans had been forced to do for decades when council decisions affected their future. Citizens of the United Earth Federation, Mitchell began, her voice carrying the authority of a species that had finally claimed its independence. For 31 years, we accepted the role of junior partners in galactic civilization. We allowed others to dictate our expansion, our research, our very destiny among the stars. The assembly hall was packed with representatives from every human colony, military commanders who had spent years preparing for this moment, and scientists whose secret discoveries had made human independence possible. Behind Mitchell, holographic displays showed the locations of human settlements across hundreds of star systems, each one now operating under purely human authority. We were told that humanity was too young, too inexperienced, too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology. We were required to submit our research for council approval, limit our territorial expansion to areas deemed appropriate by alien surveys, and accept guidance from species who claimed to understand the universe better than we ever could. Mitchell paused as her words were transmitted across human space, reaching colonies that had been built in defiance of council regulations and military installations that operated using technology the aliens had never imagined. The council made one critical error in their calculations. They assumed that compliance meant acceptance. They believed that following their rules meant agreeing with their authority. They never considered that humanity might be using their own system to study them while preparing for the day when we would no longer need their permission to chart our own course. The economic data streaming across Mitchell's displays showed the devastating impact of human withdrawal on galactic markets. Currency exchanges that had relied on human mathematical models were producing wildly inaccurate valuations. Shipping, companies that had used human logistics expertise were facing bankruptcy as their operations collapsed. Entire sectors of the galactic economy were shutting down as alien governments realized how dependent they had become on human innovation. The Zephyrian Empire faced the most severe consequences, as their aggressive expansion policies had been supported by human-designed supply chains and administrative systems. Without human expertise, their military operations ground to a halt while their colonial governments struggled to maintain basic services for their rapidly growing populations. Mitchell concluded her speech with words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Humanity hereby announces its intention to pursue our own destiny among the stars, answerable to no authority but our own conscience and our own capabilities. We extend an open hand to any species that wishes to treat with us as equals, but the age of human deference to alien oversight has ended forever. As human evacuation fleets completed their withdrawal from Council space, alien governments began to understand the true scope of what they had lost, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal from galactic diplomacy, Commander Steve Rogers stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Pioneer as it approached a star system that no alien survey had ever catalogued. The ship moved through space using propulsion methods that human engineers had perfected while the Council believed they were monitoring every aspect of human technological development. Rogers studied the sensor readings that showed clear signs of ancient civilization in the system ahead. Massive structures orbited the fourth planet, their geometry suggesting engineering capabilities that exceeded even current human achievements. The ruins had been invisible to Council surveys because they existed partially outside normal spacetime, a dimensional shift that human technology could now detect and navigate. Behind Rogers, his science team prepared equipment that would have been impossible to build under Council oversight. Dr. Margaret Bell operated scanning devices that manipulated quantum fields to analyze matter at the subatomic level. Her instruments could determine the age and composition of alien artifacts without physical contact, revealing secrets that conventional archaeology could never uncover. The system contained resources that Council surveys had somehow missed or deliberately concealed. Asteroid belts rich in elements that human industry needed for advanced manufacturing orbited close enough to the primary star to make extraction economically viable. Gas giants in the outer system contained atmospheric compounds that human chemists had identified as essential. For certain breakthrough technologies, Rogers authorized the deployment of automated mining platforms that began extracting resources within hours of arriving in the system. The platforms operated using artificial intelligence that human programmers had developed far beyond anything the Council had ever imagined possible. Each unit could analyze local conditions, adapt its procedures accordingly, and coordinate with dozens of other platforms to maximize efficiency. Meanwhile, in the Proxima system, Dr. Margaret Bell established the first human university dedicated to technologies that the Council had declared too dangerous for developing species. Human students now learned subjects that had been forbidden under galactic law: gravity manipulation, consciousness transfer, dimensional engineering, and temporal mechanics. Bell's first lecture hall was filled with young humans whose minds had never been limited by alien restrictions on what was possible or safe to study. They approached problems with creative solutions that alien scientists, constrained by centuries of collaborative regulations, could never have conceived. The university's research laboratories contained equipment that human engineers had built using principles discovered during decades of secret experimentation. Students learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality as if they were simple engineering challenges, developing intuitive understanding of concepts that alien physicists still considered theoretical abstractions. Bell watched her students work on projects that would have horrified Council safety inspectors. One team was developing portable devices that could create stable wormholes for instantaneous transportation across galactic distances. Another group was building machines that could transfer human consciousness into quantum substrates, effectively achieving technological immortality. The galactic economy had stabilized into regional blocks as alien species adapted to humanity's absence, but the efficiency and innovation that humans had brought to interspecies cooperation proved impossible to replace. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades now required constant adjustment and oversight. Communication protocols that had handled complex negotiations between dozens of species began breaking down under the stress of increased misunderstanding. Some alien civilizations began reaching out to human colonies through unofficial channels, seeking to establish relationships outside council oversight. The peaceful Caridian Republic sent secret ambassadors to human settlements, offering cultural exchanges and limited trade agreements that bypassed council regulations entirely. Captain Amy Davis received these alien diplomatic approaches at her new post as Director of External Relations for the Outer Colonies. Each request was carefully analyzed by human intelligence specialists who had spent years studying alien psychology and motivations. Some species were genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation, while others were clearly attempting to gather intelligence on human capabilities. Davis approved selected exchanges with species that demonstrated genuine respect for human sovereignty. Caridian artists visited human colonies to share their crystalline sculptures in return for human musical compositions that incorporated mathematical harmonies no alien culture had ever discovered. The exchanges were small and carefully monitored, but they represented the beginning of a new kind of interspecies relationship based on mutual respect rather than imposed hierarchy. The Galactic Council still met in their ancient chambers on Harmony Prime, but their authority had been permanently diminished. Council Prime Zirion presided over debates that seemed increasingly pointless as member species struggled with internal problems that human expertise had once helped them solve. The Council could no longer claim to represent galactic civilization when humanity, now clearly the most technologically advanced species in known space, refused to acknowledge their legitimacy. Some progressive council members argued for dismantling the old system entirely and establishing a true confederation of equals, but conservative factions resisted any change that might reduce their traditional authority. Zirion himself had begun to understand that the Council's greatest mistake had been treating humanity as children who needed guidance, rather than recognizing them as potential equals who deserved respect. The humans had been studying galactic civilization for 31 years while pretending to be students, and they had learned lessons that their supposed teachers had never intended to reveal. Jake Morrison, now serving as Director of Human External Affairs, reviewed reports from across human space while sitting in his office on the moon base that served as humanity's new diplomatic headquarters. Colony ships were launching toward distant galaxies using navigation, data that human explorers had gathered in secret during their years of supposed cooperation with alien surveys. Human research stations in deep space were unlocking fundamental secrets of the universe using experimental methods that Council regulations had made impossible. Scientists working without alien oversight had discovered principles of physics that opened entire new fields of technological development. Morrison activated his communication system and prepared to broadcast a message that would reach every major population center in the galaxy. For the first time since humanity's withdrawal, he would address the entire galactic community with an official statement about humanity's intentions and future plans. Citizens of the galaxy, Morrison began, his words carrying across light years to alien worlds where his species had once been dismissed as inexperienced children. The United Earth Federation extends an invitation to all species interested in genuine partnership between sovereign civilizations. We are prepared to discuss mutual cooperation, cultural exchange, and collaborative research projects with any government that recognizes humanity as an equal participant in galactic affairs. Morrison paused, knowing that his next words would define the relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy for generations to come. The age of human deference is over, but the age of human cooperation has just begun. We invite you to join us in exploring the infinite possibilities that await among the stars.